I'm talking about the show. I'm talking about the show Blue Lock. Um, and I'm not talking about any spoilers or manga things. It's just that like the show really delves into like, the show really delves into what's it called? The show really dives into like sports psychology and stuff, so I was gonna talk about that. But by the way, if you have like a psychology related question, I'm like mildly educated on it, so like I can answer that. If you have any problems related to not turning on your mic, I'm clearly not the person to come to for that. But yeah. So essentially, like, so I was just saying, so like, Blue Lock's really interesting because it focuses on the ego. Oh, this is gonna be so much more efficient, but now I won't be able to. What's it called? I won't be able to pad out this video now because I typically pad things out by rambling, but now I'm gonna be super coherent weirdly. So basically, Blue Lock is a show that highly emphasizes the ego and says that like in order to be a good striker, you need to have kind of this ego of like, well, I'm the one who takes the shots. I need to get this goal and everything like that. I think that that's very optimal when it comes to. I think that that is very good, and I'm doing good. Just in general, I think that Blue Lock is very good about what's it called? I think that Blue Lock's very good at like showing that the ego is a good alternative to low self-esteem, because like because low self-esteem is still a form of ego. And so I do think that it's a good alternative, but I don't think that it's optimal, because I think that the flow state is much more of like a good end goal, and I actually don't think the ego is a good first stepping stone to getting a flow state and like cultivating that, because like the getting habitually attached to your ego is actually counterproductive, because in order to have a good flow state, we can't have an ego. I've been streaming for like amount of time I've been streaming in general, when you count multiple streams, like I've been streaming for like 2 months, maybe 2 months. How long have I been streaming this stream? Like 20-ish minutes, closer to like 18. Oh, it's good. I really like. I love this game. It's really cool. So like Blue Lock is really interesting because they're like, oh, well, if you get this identity of like, I'm the best, then you'll do better. But I actually think that that actually pulls you away from the flow state, because think about it. If the flow state is being fully enveloped in the thing, you cannot get an accurate flow state. You cannot get a good flow state, and you can't get the flow state at all, really, if part of you is not focused on the thing, it's focused on comparison, because that's what the ego is. It's comparing you to other people. It's cultivating an identity, things like that. Like, it's just very unfortunate. So like, what? Actually, not as impressive as you'd think. I actually have, I had like 26 of those when I first started streaming. Like when I started streaming again, like 2 months ago. So like, I've only gotten like 15 subscribers, which is good. Like, it's still good. I'm still grateful. But yeah, like when you have the flow state, you need to be fully enveloped in the thing. So I actually think that like ego is only good. A positive ego is only simply better than a negative ego. But like, but it's not optimal, because like it ultimately impacts your performance, because very simply, the ego is a defense mechanism. It's not the product of anyone who's actually genuinely confident in their abilities. Like when someone's like a narcissist, it's because it's a defense mechanism, because they truly deep down don't think very highly of themselves. And so when people are like getting into, so like a lot of people, so I don't want anyone to think that like flow state can be achieved with ego, because like it just kind of can't. Like you just like straight up, like it's overly simplistic, but you just kind of can't do that. And so when you I have no idea. I just start streaming. So when you get into, so like when it comes to whether or not is the philosophy of ego, I tend to like not think that it's overall productive, because like I get that you might need that role as specific. I'm sure it's very applicable to like the role of a striker, but I actually think that like a flow state striker is going to be better than like someone who's like is driven by like egomania. And I really do like that they delve into things like the flow state and stuff like that. I really do like how they delve into that, because like that's more my speed. That's like if I was a soccer coach, I would be aiming to have like flow state of all of my players. I'm not sure what you mean by that. But like there's so like when you get into what am I trying to say? So like a thing that I really like about the show is I really like how they frame Isagi as a character, because when he's a because Isagi's like probably like one of the most cognitively flexible, which is like the #1 trait when it comes to things like performance and things like esports and regular sports and stuff like that. But there's like been papers about cognitive flexibility, so it's like your ability to think outside the box, but like your flow state and your cognitive flexibility is going to go down with your stress, with your ability to get into the flow state is going to be hindered, as well as your cognitive flexibility, when you have your ego present, because the ego cannot exist without this sort of passive stress. And what does stress lead to? It leads to cortisol. What does cortisol lead to? Like stress is caused by cortisol, which literally makes us think black and white. So it's actually kind of a myth when people are like, oh, well, when we're pushed to the human limit, we're gonna be so stressed that it'll force us to think outside the box. That's actually not true. Like, I get the line of logic, but that actually doesn't like track with like science, because like it's just plain and simple. Like when we are stressed, we think less outside the box, we think less black and white, and so our creativity goes down. And so you're actually gonna be more creative the less stressed you become. That's like debatable when it comes to things like art like that. But like when it comes to like on the fly thinking, oh no, I have not tried those games. So when it comes to cultivating good flow states, because like not all flow states are created equal. Like I could be practicing the piano and it would not be good, because regardless of whether or not I get in the flow state, because I just don't have the information to even create a good flow state. So like so a big aspect of this is like you should create a study time where like there is a lot of cognitive thought and very little flow state, in the sense that like you should be cognitively thinking about like really hard about these things, and then get used to getting into a flow state after that. Because what's going to happen is when you get used to that cognitive state, your brain's going to get comfortable in it. It's going to be harder to cultivate a flow state. You will be truly an unstoppable force when you learn to have a very cognitively intense practice period, where like every time you're every time you're thinking, where every time you're practicing, like in a non-game format, you can think really, really hard. But when it's game time, you can cultivate the right flow state. And that comes with understanding your ego. That comes with getting rid of emotions that you suppress. Not getting rid of them as in suppressing them more. I mean like working through them and everything. Understanding the nature of your ego and what it's protecting you from. And all this sorts of stuff. So like, I actually think that like Isagi is like such a cognitively flexible person, because like what basically happens is like he gets stressed and then he kind of is like, wait a minute, I need to like calm down and think outside the box. And then like he comes up with like unique strategies, which typically other players like struggle with doing. And I think that weirdly a part of the reason they struggle to do that is because they were encouraged to have big egos. So weirdly a very accurate thing if you assume that like ego as a character is not meant to directly reflect the psychological beliefs of the show, and it is meant to more so be like a piece of the puzzle. Yes, I am a psychology student. I'm about to start my internship, which is the final stage of my master's program soon, and then I will have a license. But yeah, I'm about to get my first clients very soon. And so I think that that's really cool about the show. Go ahead, ask your question, and then I'll try and answer it immediately after I'm done talking about Blue Lock, because like I said, I'm getting through it so much faster ever since I had to do an entire retry because of the mic thing. So go ahead and ask it, and that way I can kind of like stew on it while I'm doing this. So when so I really like how I don't really like how sometimes it can be misinterpreted through Blue Lock that like having ego can lead to a flow state where it's like, oh, if I think really hard about myself, then I'll just get in the groove, you know, like that. And like it's like, no, thinking hard about how to get into the flow state is not a good idea for getting into the flow state. And additionally, no amount of ego will ever cultivate a flow state. They simply just cannot coexist. Like, flow state is caused by the absence of ego. So like that's why I think that it's kind of weird how it touches on flow state, but also that. But I don't think that it means that it's like holistically inaccurate or anything like that. I just think that it's a really interesting topic to think about. So yeah, I think that like the show's really good at showing cognitive flexibility, how like when your stress goes down, you might be able to think of things that are better. And like how narrow-minded characters get when they're very like stressed out and everything like that, how like their plans start to fall apart, and how much when they reframe it and think like, okay, if I was thinking outside the box, what would I think? And then they are able to think about that. That to me is like what is realistic about a main character having a lot of potential. So I really like that actually. And so overall, I think that Blue Lock has a lot to I think that Blue Lock has a lot to say that's actually very very accurate and very cool to say about sports psychology. The stuff it says about the flow state is really good if you keep in mind that you are never going to think your way into a flow state. You're never going to be like, oh, think really hard, or you're not going to stress yourself out to the point of like surpassing your limits, quote unquote, by like forcing yourself to get into a flow state. Like, you can't force yourself to get in a flow state. The flow state is something that happens to you. It's not something that you do. And so I think that if you want to like take any lessons from it, it's that generally if you're going to be something like a striker that requires kind of an egotistical position, you kind of need to cultivate like that is better probably than like something like low self-esteem, but either way, they're both a sense of ego, which takes you away from the flow state. Cognitive flexibility is also very important, which is actually not caused by stress, like a lot of anime likes to say. Stress actually reduces cognitive flexibility. So get a grip of your ego and understand why it exists and kind of move away from its direction when it tries to pull you in a certain direction. Don't let it control you. And that will be able to cultivate more of a flow state because you'll be able to focus more on the thing at hand, reduce your stress, especially during gameplay, understand like why your brain is so stressed, and like think about like how it's pulling you away from this and everything like that, and all this sort of stuff. So because cognitive flexibility, flow state, and ego are the main building components of this, and I think that what you really need is more so cognitive flexibility and flow state, and those can actually... Flow state is not the worst thing you can be in. I mean, ego is not the worst state to be in when it comes to sports, but it is absolutely worse than having good cognitive flexibility and flow state, which cannot exist without ego, with ego and with stress. There is studies about like a particular amount of stress helping you. Like, it's called eustress versus distress. So eustress is so it's important to have like a little bit of stress, but you shouldn't be like stressed out. You should just have a tiny bit amount of stress to focus on the thing at hand. but it's really about surrendering to the activity and becoming one with it, rather than thinking about like, oh, what does this mean for me? Oh no, I can't lose my title. I really need to get my head in the game. All this sort of stuff. So I really like blue.